Hey y'all, I'm Brooke Hoover, a Louisiana native, actor, writer, and comedian. I've lost 100 pounds through diet and exercise, or shall I say, lifestyle changes. My 20-year and counting health journey has taught me that just like taking a diet pill for weight loss, body positivity doesn't magically happen overnight. I'm working on regaining my self-esteem and rekindling my love affair with Cajun and Southern comfort food in a healthier way, all the while juggling eating as clean as I can, reestablishing myself in the entertainment industry, which, as we know, is historically fat-phobic, all the while showing my inner fat girl some love. That's fat with a PH. Pretty hot and tempting. Let me tell y'all a tale or two. Hey everybody, it is the Who's Dat Fat Girl podcast. We are here today with an awesome special guest, Mandy, who is a chronic pain specialist, certified nutritionist, and she's been a movement instructor for nearly 2 decades. Mandy's mission is to empower individuals like you and me, challenged by persistent pain, to reclaim their vitality and independence. Mandy takes a holistic approach that combines nervous system re-education, mindset cultivation, nutrition coaching, and exercise in order to help her clients move through their pain. I must say, I did not write that bio. Mandy did. It's awfully fabulous, and I'm super excited to have you on here today. Being someone who has dealt with pain in the past, I think many people, especially Americans, suffer with pain. We're grateful to have you here, Mandy. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I mean, I just threw a lot of about yourselfness at you and about what you do. Like, this is your business, this is your passion, and it's also your business.
Yeah. And also I'm somebody who suffers with a chronic pain issue.
Oh, really?
So yes. And so that's kind of why I got into this work, because like most of my clients now and the people I just talked to who are struggling with chronic pain, which is a lot of people, because, I mean, I should say pain is something that everyone on the planet has to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
However, for maybe 20 to 30% of the population, it is chronic, right? And for maybe another 10% of the population, they have severe pain every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so common. And yes, I am someone who has a chronic pain issue. And like all of those other 20 to 30% of people, I did all the things. I did the procedures and I took the pills and I, went to the neurologist and then, and none of it helped. It just got worse.
Mm-hmm.
And it got really, 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 really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So stressful, so time consuming. And then I started to find out more about pain itself. And I realized that to live better or live without pain, I wasn't going to need to fix a body part. I wasn't going to need to learn more about that thing that hurt. I needed to know more about pain.
Mm-hmm.
Pain itself, which is cool because pain science is like a really cool, relatively new science. Really, it's only been in the last 20 or 30 years that it's becoming mainstream. But we know more about pain than we ever have. And what we know can definitely give people like me and people like you, people like your listeners, hope that they can either live better with pain or maybe even eliminate their pain.
Wow. So what is chronic pain? I know there's acute pain. Obviously, you slam your finger in a door, that's acute. What's chronic pain? Because I've had back issues come and go, and luckily they've dissipated. And I don't just say luckily, I've put in a lot of the work. But talk to us more about chronic pain. I know there's a lot on various spectrums.
Yeah, that's a really good question and a super great place to start, because you are correct that acute pain and chronic pain are different. So we classify chronic pain as being any kind of pain which persists beyond normal tissue healing time. So each of the tissues in our body has its own sort of timeline for healing. So if you like strain a muscle, just like a little pull, right? That's typically going to heal within 2 weeks.
Okay.
If you break a bone, that could take 3 to 6 months, right? If you damage connective tissue, really it can be resolved within 3 months, but it will still be healing for several years, if we're honest. So based on the sort of average, the guideline is pain that persists past 3 to 6 months has typically gone from an acute injury to chronicity.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of chronic pain, because it is in the absence of active tissue damage, we understand that it has more to do with the nervous system. It's kind of like your body, your brain, your nervous system, your memories, your thoughts, your beliefs, all of those sort of learned pain.
Mm.
And so when I said that what I needed to learn was about pain, not just the body part that was bothering me, what I mean is that I had to learn to retrain myself. I had to I had to reinstill that sense of safety and comfort so that I could um, almost like dismantle that pain experience. And when I say self, what I mean is that the self is the body, but it's also the brain and the nervous system, and it's the memories and it's the beliefs. It's the social connections that we have. It's, where our ancestors came from and the generational traumas. And right, this self is this huge constellation of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way that I approach pain is that we must address all of the things that have been shifted as a result of pain within the constellation of self. So if you pull a string here, it's going to have an effect here, for
Right.
example. So we
Which,
just go and we start pulling strings.
so this is much different than the way a lot of Western medicine, or quote unquote modern medicine, air quotes, if you will, approaches things, because oftentimes it seems like if you hurt your back, like I did, they're literally looking at your back. They're not looking at the whole picture. And if they are looking at the whole picture, if you're lucky, they're looking at your hip, your foot, that's my specific case. But you're
Yes.
saying you're also looking at things not just from a body part, a whole body, as in physical body. You're looking at mental body, ancestral healing almost, right? So nutrition. So if you're having pain, you're not just saying, modern medicine might say, oh, well, Mandy, let's go do physical therapy and work on that toe of yours. We need to look at everything from a much more holistic standpoint. Is that what you're saying? And that's kind of the difference of what trends are going,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's not just me that's saying that. I mean,
Right.
research is definitely showing over and over and over that um, all of the interventions that you might get, for example, with back pain, since you brought it
Right.
up. I mean, what we know is that the surgeries that people have been getting for back pain
Mm-hmm.
are not very effective,
Right.
and that they have a very high rate of major complications.
Yes.
So even though you may have a 20% success rate on that spinal fusion, there's about a 50 to 60% chance that you're going to have some pretty severe issues as a result.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's the same with like the pills, the opioids that we were giving people. Obviously, we know that those have created a whole new problem. But I don't think what people understand is that evidence shows that if you have two people and one person took opioids for their back pain and one person just did what we call conservative care, the kind of work that I do, which is not medical, by the way, the person who is taking the pill after 2 years, and then I think the follow-up, this was a Danish study, was after 5 years, was that not only did the person who took the pill have worse pain over the course of that 5 years at every checkup, but they also had worse function.
Whoa.
So yes, so what we're saying is that, the stuff that we have been doing in the past addresses the biological self, and the biological self is a part of self. And yes, tissue damage does predispose us, right? To some extent, that it somewhat heightens the chance that you'll have a pain issue. It's by no means an open and shut case,
Mm-hmm.
because, I'm in my 40s. So, of people in my age range, if we took 100 of them who have no back pain symptoms, like myself, I have no back pain, right? 100 of people like me, what we're going to see in MRI scans is that about half of them, 40 to 50% of them, actually have bulging discs.
Mm.
A higher percentage of those individuals will have disc degeneration because that's just normal. It's a normal part of aging. And then a much lower percentage is going to have like the actual disc herniations and sequestrations. Okay.
Right.
But it's still relatively common to find those in asymptomatic populations.
Mm-hmm.
So are those people slightly predisposed to developing a pain condition? Yes. But I think what we can take from that is that you can have all that stuff happening in your spine and not have pain.
Right.
Right?
And
Or here's the other thing you could take from it is that you could not have all that stuff happening in your spine and have pain.
right.
It goes both ways.
So it's not just like a death sentence. I basically got an MRI several years ago, right during the pandemic. I pulled something in my back and it had a bulging disc, and they basically did an MRI, and the nurse practitioner gave me like the results, and it sounded like it was a death sentence. I left that night in tears. Like, I'm an actor, like I need to be active. But you know what? A year and a half later, I was roller skating and rollerblading in a roller rink right by that same office, outside, and I flipped the guy off because it was like, it's not a death sentence. And I mean, it's nothing against this one person. I mean, maybe it is. I do kind of like have a vendetta against horrible medical people, but it's their training. It's their training. It's the way in which they're trained. And what's so maddening is that, you know, it's not like they don't listen or believe in the way in which you're approaching it, and which research has backed it, and which I support. It's that the money isn't going that way, which is what's frustrating. You know, insurance doesn't cover it. There's not millions of dollars being put into research, at least in America. You know, that search was Danish. So I don't know. That's the sad part of it. And my question is, this is not necessarily like on our agenda, but this kind of segues into that. So what are your thoughts on neurologists? Because I've had several of my loved ones have dealt with neurologists recently, and nothing against them, but and honestly, nothing against them this time, but it's like the neurologists can't seem to fix, AKA fix what's going on. It almost seems like, one of my friends was like, this is a really bogus profession, neurology. I don't know. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that specifically, or just reading an MRI and like you said, people can have pain and it won't even show on an MRI, or people can have an MRI that shows up like your back is a death sentence, and you're like me, you're doing your thing and you're cool, knock on wood, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, having seen so many professionals for my pain issue, and I still live with the same tissue damage that I had, but I rarely have pain anymore now that I've done the same work that I use with my clients now. You know, and one of them was a neurologist, and I will say he was probably my least favorite, but because mostly because the medication that I ended up on was the most horrific experience with any it was just awful. It was like life stealing, this medication. So, you know what I think is that doctors, the number one reason that a person is going to show up at the doctor is because of pain. Okay.
Right.
The number one reason you're not just going for your physical, you're going for pain. And yet medicine has relatively little to offer someone whose pain has become chronic. They can be really helpful for someone who has acute pain, right? They can like set a bone, or they can provide some medication, or, you know, whatever. But once pain has become chronic, in other words, the nervous system has learned it and is maintaining it almost independently, medicine has not much to offer to that person. And yet, I really do believe that doctors are caring and professional, and what they really want is to help.
Right.
And so, you know, that idea that if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. right? If you're a neurologist, the tools you have are amitriptyline and nortriptyline, and you have, you could do some, right? So guess what? Everything looks like something you can treat with that particular hammer.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It's the same with the surgeon. It's the same with the physical therapist. It's the same with me, right? I do exercise, nutrition, mindfulness, education. I got like 4 different hammers, but I'm always looking for the nails that I can bang on. Right? That's
But
just
you
how
have
we work.
but you have 4 different hammers. So if you go to one specific profession of a doctor, they have one. I like this analogy. They have one hammer. You have 4 different ones because you work holistically. So can you kind of talk a little bit about yourself? Like, I mean, I hate to be like jazz hands, but sell yourself a little bit. Tell us what you do. Walk us through, pun intended, maybe what kind of movements might be best. It's going to depend on the situation for the different pain, I would assume, obviously. But can you walk us through how you work, how your sessions work, how movement helps?
Yes, I would love to talk about how movement helps. And I'd like to talk about, um, I think pretty much everybody that I work with has already tried, 1,000 different things like I did. And I think probably like you sort of went through with your back pain, and all your listeners have gone through realistically. Right. And so, you know, uh, it didn't work in a lot of cases, which is why they're seeing me.
Right.
And so I think, one of the reasons why maybe it didn't work, maybe there's 2. So, and by saying this, I'll sort of explain a little bit about what I do. So, one of the reasons is that whatever was being done wasn't necessarily customized to them,
Right.
right? It wasn't taking into account the entire constellation of self that has perpetuated this pain issue, right? So again, we just need to start pulling on levers. Which is the one that we can start with, right? Which is the one that my client, is feeling most motivated and compelled to change first, because the one that they're most motivated to work on is probably the first one that you should work on.
Right.
Because they're ready to go. The other part of that, the solution wasn't customized, and the solution, number 2, the solution wasn't taking into account the biopsychosocial nature of pain. So that's the new terminology we use about pain. It's biological.
Can you say it again? Yeah, say it again.
Biopsychosocial. So it's in your tissues, it's in your psychology, it's also in your social environment. Right? Pain is a very social experience. If it wasn't, then humans would not have evolved to sort of moan and groan and limp around, right? There's a reason that we develop those behaviors. It's because hopefully, it gets somebody to help us.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And so, but that social component is so tricky when someone is sort of stuck in the biomedical model of pain, because that social component can also perpetuate pain. It can be the thing that sort of helps you to move away from it or perpetuate it. So if you have a doctor and they look at your scan and they say, we can't see anything wrong. Or you have a doctor who says you have a bulging disc. Oh my God, you're going to be in a wheelchair in 18 months, right? Those social cues also go into the bucket, you could say, that bucket of self. So yeah, I mean, and then the second sort of question you had was around movement. So, there's all different kinds of pain. Most of the pain that people deal with on a regular basis is musculoskeletal. So that's kind of where I really shine, although I am someone who lives with irritable bowel syndrome, right? Which can be a very painful condition.
Yes.
So it's not that movement and exercise can't help with that. But, also people have pain like migraines, for example.
Yep. One of my best friends does. Yep.
So for each of these, there is a way to get moving, but I would say that, well, actually, no. I'm going to say for all of these, movement can be incredibly beneficial, but I think we usually go to the musculoskeletal stuff. So back pain and knee pain and neck pain. Can I move with this musculoskeletal pain is the question I get a lot. Because in the old model from 30 years ago, people were told, oh, if your back hurts, just rest
Right.
it.
Right.
You know, your knee is bothering. I have someone as a client who was recently diagnosed with pretty severe osteoporosis.
Wow.
And her doctor told her, oh, don't do this. I mean, basically told her to bubble wrap herself.
Yeah, exactly.
But all of the best evidence shows us that people with osteoporosis only get worse if they rest. And it's the same with back pain. It's the
Yeah.
same with that painful osteoarthritis in your knee.
Yeah.
All tissues, even tissues which are painful, benefit and adapt from movement.
Mm-hmm.
And so for some people, we have to start really, really slow. We do a style of movement called somatics, which I love, which is
Yeah.
really nervous system education. I know you know about somatics from your
I'm
Alexander technique.
and oh, look at you. I'm learning more and more about it, and I'm just like becoming obsessed with it. One of my friends who also listens to the podcast, we were telling tales about it just a couple weeks ago. So yeah, keep talking. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I got so excited about somatics.
What tell me what was it about Alexander technique do you think that helped you?
So, and as I'm saying this as I adjust my back a little bit better, I have a bad chair that I sit in. I sit in a bad chair, but I try to really use my body better. So I have a right flat foot that's super flat, and I'm actually working on that with a physical therapist right now. I've found a physical therapist who looks at things much more holistically. I love her. I want to keep her forever. We're friends. Like she really looks at things in a much different way than a lot of Western medicine. But with Alexander, my right flat foot, it would kind of fall in like severely, so much so that I used it so poorly that I have atrophy in the right calf. So with Alexander technique, we had to do a semester in college, and then I just started doing it more and more because she was like, Brooke, don't say that you have a bad right flat foot. Don't say any of that. It's the usage of it. It's the way in which you're using your body. So she, and Alexander technique, she would focus on working with my neck and my spine, and she would literally walk in the music halls but with holding my neck in proper alignment, and it fixed my foot. And so that's what said to me, I couldn't obviously keep up with the Alexander forever, with her specifically, but I've applied the principles. It's the usage of my foot. So it's not just, oh, I have a bad foot and orthotics are going to fix it. Sometimes, yes, I do need a supplement, if you will, with orthotics, but it's the usage. So Alexander opened my eyes to that about,
Mm.
as a baby, we're all kind of born and we use our bodies much differently than an adult because, like you were saying, society, our body, whatever things we're hearing and that are coming at us, we're using our body differently or not as optimally as we could be. And that's kind of what Alexander helped me with.
Okay. Okay, that's cool. So yeah, there's a lot of different somatic traditions. Alexander is one of the more
I did not
common
know that,
ones.
Alexander was
Mhm.
somatic. Okay, continue,
Mhm.
Mandy. This is fun.
Yeah. So I sort of work more with a technique called Feldenkrais method, which I'm
Yes.
not a certified Feldenkrais practitioner, but I have been doing Feldenkrais and learning from practitioners for quite some time. So I sort of adapt it
Mm-hmm.
because my profession for these many years has been as a yoga instructor, fitness
Yes.
instructor, right? So I sort of integrate the somatic movement from Feldenkrais with all of those other modalities. But, what I think of when people ask what is somatics, because like it's pretty rare for people to actually, like the light bulb to go on when you say that, right? Um, so I always explain to people that somatic movement, because there's also somatics which are targeting like
Mm-hmm.
emotions and trauma that I'm not a mental health practitioner, so I
Mm-hmm.
stay out of that. Um, Somatics, think about, probably over, these many hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution, we have developed thousands, if not millions, of movement systems which are designed to target the musculoskeletal system, whether it be to enhance your performance, right? Whether it be to get a ball down the field, or if it's for self-defense, or if it's for your physique, if it's for being whatever, all of these different things to improve the musculoskeletal system, right? Movement is typically targeting musculoskeletal system,
Mhm.
as opposed to somatic movement, which is designed to target the nervous system.
Okay.
Because a portion of our nervous system is devoted specifically to the experiencing of the body, the planning of movement, and the execution of movement. That's our somatic nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
So when we do this kind of somatic movement, yes, we're using the body, but I always tell people it's like a 3D printer.
Okay.
Right. So imagine that you are reprinting, right? Like one pass at a time, a new way to move the body, a new way to experience the body. And when we do somatics, typically it's going to be a very repetitive type of movement. It's going to have a lot of play
Mm-hmm.
to it. And by doing that, we're also allowing sufficient time to pull in those other aspects of self. So, yes, it is the joint moving, right? I'm moving my shoulder. If somebody's got a painful shoulder, this is a hard movement. We're going to do movements which are going to make it feel safe and comfortable to do that, maybe even feel good. But at the same time, we can also explore like the fear that comes up
Ah.
when we do that, or we can explore the memories
Mm-hmm.
about maybe this specific injury,
Mm-hmm.
or even our beliefs about it. Like, if I do that again, I'm going to hurt myself, right?
Right.
So somatics is a great place to start, because it helps us to explore all those other little aspects of self that we may not have identified in the past as potentially contributing to our pain.
Wow. You just explained that super well. I can
I've done it
I can
before.
so relate. You're like, I've been around. Yeah, I can so relate. And it's funny, like when you were describing the shoulder pain, knock on wood, thank God you don't have shoulder pain. I don't. But I can relate. My dad had a big shoulder surgery. It was a horrible thing, like 10 surgeries last year. It was crazy. So when you were describing that shoulder pain, I was feeling it. You don't have the shoulder pain, neither did I, but I think we both kind of, and in a sense, like you feel that vibe because, like you were saying, pain is a societal thing. So it's often there's that fear of, oh, if I reach up, I know it's going to hurt, so I'm not going to reach. I don't want to move. So I think that that was really like enlightening in a sense to say, you know, I know I'm getting way really too into this, but I think you explained somatics super well too, because
Thank you.
I I didn't even know Alexander and Feldenkrais were part of somatics. I knew somatics more as emotional trauma healing
Mhm.
from that sense, but obviously the emotional and the physical body are so related. So, you know, what I guess there people might ask, and I think you already kind of answered that question, but if you want to speak on it anymore, you know, people think, oh, I'm in pain. I shouldn't exercise. I shouldn't move. But obviously, you should. I can account for the fact that if you have back pain and if you stop moving, it makes it worse, or if you move, it makes it better. But do you have any more things we want to talk about, like exercising with pain or a gentle movement with pain? How do you push through? Might not be the best way to put it.
Yeah, no, I'd love to talk on that. So, you know, pain is such a compelling experience that it is very convincing. I
Mm.
mean, we evolved to be really convinced by pain, right? The
Right.
second you experience pain, it gets your attention. It gets you to
Yeah.
protect yourself. And that's the point of pain, right? To
Mhm.
get you to protect yourself. So it makes sense that when we're hurting, we just want to protect ourselves. We want to, get on the couch with a blanket and Netflix and just cocoon ourselves in this sense of safety where nothing can hurt us.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that experience is so contrary to what we actually need. So my pain science mentor has the story about, he says, like, what is the most common reason for a headache?
Mm.
it's dehydration.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing about the experience of a headache says, I need to drink some water,
Right.
right? So it's a really good example of like our bodies are kind of horrible at telling us what to do when we're in pain.
Yeah.
And that's right. And that's why so many people really struggle, I think, to self manage pain. And that's why I make a living helping people to make these decisions, because it can be really, really hard to know, when is it safe for me to move? What kind of movement should I do? What happens if XYZ happens? What do I do then? Have I hurt myself again? So when I'm having a flare, um, I also just want to lay around and watch Netflix. But I have found over the years that when I have a flare, I got to go to the gym. I got
Yeah.
to pick up heavy shit. I got to push heavy shit. And that gets me back on track. Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, in addition to yoga and somatic work and mindfulness work, I also am a strength and conditioning specialist. Right. I like to train people to lift really, really heavy shit.
Nice.
So, and like all of my clients are people who've struggled with chronic pain. And a good portion of my clients are making huge progress at the gym, right? Like they're at a point now where it's like, yes, my knee still bothers me a little. Sometimes my back flares up, but also we're going to PR that deadlift today, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, like, sometimes you move with a little bit of pain. And sometimes when you have a little bit of pain, moving can be the thing that helps you to get back on track,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like physical therapy is wonderful because it can start to get you moving. But over and over and over, we see with research that looks at specific musculoskeletal pain conditions, just general exercise performs as well, if not better, than all of the corrective prescriptive exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So if you
Mm-hmm.
can get yourself moving, chances are you're going to make a huge dent in your pain experience.
Right. I see what you're saying. So it's not just the physical therapy. You don't have, if you're exercising and moving, you're going to feel relief in some shape or form. And eventually
Yeah.
that should just be, I mean, I don't like to say, I tell people, let's not do shoulds, but come on, guys, y'all know what I mean. It should be your thing. Like I know that if I have back pain and I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, I must exercise at least 6 times a week in some shape or form. That's just how it goes. That's just the
Yeah.
cards I was dealt with, and I'm cool with it. Hey, there could be a lot worse things than having musting to I should exercise 6 times a week. I want to because I want to feel better. So I love that you said that. I love that you have some people lifting heavy weights. That's fierce. That's awesome. Because also something I've noticed going through physical therapy and on and off for many years of my life, sometimes it's just not enough. Like they just don't. There's not enough weight. There's not enough push. It depends. It seems like a lot of physical therapy is often geared for people who are the ages of 70 and up, and it's not always, or for people who are not as active probably as we are, and probably as a lot of our listeners are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, go ahead, Mandy.
Well, so, physical therapy it has helped me in the past. So I have nothing against physical therapy, but it's really only meant to last like as much as like 9 to 12 weeks, right?
Right.
And then, my clients tend to be people who are either preclinical. So they have this thing, but they're like, I don't want to go to the doctor for it. Let me go to somebody who's going to help me deal with these other lifestyle factors.
Right.
Or post clinical. They
Exactly.
have already done all the physical therapy and they're like, but it still bothers me.
Right.
Right. But the physical therapist, they signed off, but I don't feel like I'm done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's because there's still a lot of work that you can do. I mean, if you've been in pain for a while, chances are you have not been moving very much, or you've been moving in ways that are really not very beneficial to you.
Right.
So you're deconditioned, you're terrified to hurt yourself again, right? If you haven't been moving for a while, there's a high chance that maybe you put on a little extra weight,
Yep.
right? And so, I mean, all of these things sort of come together to create an overall experience of being very resistant to move,
Yeah.
you know?
Mandy, My dad, everybody needs to listen to this podcast episode. My dad specifically, and he will probably watch it on YouTube on his TV. Right now, I want you to really plug your website. Tell us your website, because I bet a ton of people are like, Brooke, get us to tell, for Mandy to say, how do we contact you? Because I'm assuming you work in person, but you also work like we're connected right now on a Zoom type of platform. So tell
Yeah.
us your website.
Yes, I do. I work virtually. I just love personal training. I love strength and conditioning. So I do work with some people in person at the gym and I teach yoga. But so my website is called empoweredself.me,
Okay.
empoweredself.me, because that's what I want to do. I want to help you empower your own personal self. Um, and I do offer a like a 25-minute strategy call.
Oh, great.
So if you're thinking, okay, actually, this sounds like I might need this, maybe we should chat, just hit me up. We'll talk. We will determine maybe what the next first step for you should be, right? So based on your goals, your motivations, where should you start?
Nice. That's awesome. And that's empoweredself.me, right?
Yep.
That's great. A 25-minute call. I think people could get a lot of help and then figure out where to go next. With
Mhm.
you, we're looking at movement. Are we looking at, which brings me to my next question, nutrition? Obviously, we know how nutrition might work with what your journey is with IBS. But nutrition, like people might say, but what's nutrition with back pain? I think some of the listeners to Who's That Fat Girl are a little bit more savvy and like, Brooke, well, don't eat inflammatory foods. But, is it beyond that? Can you comment on the nutrition part specifically? Or even if you want to talk about nutrition and IBS, whatever the case may be, let's open the platform to talking about nutrition a little bit and pain management.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, nutrition is um gosh, it's everything,
Yeah.
right? And yet so many people manage to make it through a good portion of their life, not really thinking about it much. But if we're not adequately nourishing ourselves, we're going to have a rough time healing from injury.
Yep.
Right? We are not going to be providing those building blocks that the body needs to really heal in an efficacious and efficient way.
Yeah.
Um, if we're not nourishing the body properly, our immune system will not be functioning with the same level of robustness that we hope.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I don't think many people understand that a good portion of the pain experience is inflammation, right?
Mm.
Regardless of whatever kind of pain you have, there is a very high probability inflammation is involved. And that inflammation is, how do I want to say this? Inflammation is the tool of the immune system, right?
Okay.
The immune system is in charge of inflammation, right? And your nervous system and your immune system are connected.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we're starting to think of these two as the neuroimmune system. I mean, even 10 years ago, I had a radiologist in one of my pain care cohorts, and I talked about the neuroimmune system. And
Mm-hmm.
he said, well, that's horse shit. He
Oh,
literally said that in, in front of
doc,
everyone.
look at
But,
that.
now even like 3, 4, I mean, I'm plugged into a different type of media, but
Yeah.
now everybody's talking about the neuroimmune system. But like, you're not going to be able to address pain effectively without addressing your immune system.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to come back to, well, there's two other things I want to say about this. I mean, as you're starting to get back to movement and you're getting back to your activities, it's really important to take care of your function and take care of your performance through nutrition, right? So there's all of these different stages of a pain care journey, right? At first, it might be, let's cut out the inflammatory foods. Let's emphasize the anti-inflammatory foods. And then we'll start to work with the immune system, which is also part of the inflammation question. Now let's talk about performance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we getting the adequate micronutrients so that you're healing and adapting to this new level of activity? And then for a lot of people, a good majority of my clients, there's also a weight loss component. So
Mhm.
how can we do all of these things at the same time?
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
this is just fascinating. Uh, Mandy, I know this is going to be different because obviously what you give is individualized advice, right? Every person, every body is different. But is there sort of one little tidbit of advice that you can leave with those people who are struggling with chronic pain? Again, it will vary depending on the type of pain, but is there some sort of advice you could leave with us?
I have some advice. Yes. So, can I get this? Could I offer a little story as a way of?
Sure. We
Okay.
love stories. I love
Okay.
good tales.
So, several years ago, I was doing a cohort for neck pain. And I asked one of the clients that I had when her neck pain started. You know, a lot of times there's like some kind of event or trauma. It was like, a car accident or a fall or whatever.
Right.
So I always like to ask, like, what was the genesis of this thing? And she said, oh, it's driving. It's definitely driving. And I said, well, when did it start? And she said, a couple years ago, I hurt my neck driving because I was driving like 8 hours a weekend. I would drive 4 hours to this small town in Iowa and 4 hours back. And I hurt, that's when I hurt my neck. And I said, oh, wow, that's a lot of driving. Like, why were you driving so much
Yeah.
at that time? And she said, oh, my mom was dying.
Oh my gosh.
And I have also had this experience, right, of a mother dying and driving back and forth, and even after, and trying to help my dad out. It was a 7-hour drive each way, maybe a couple times a month. And so I remember this experience, right? It was the most heartbreaking, grief filled, terrifying experience that I have had in my life, right?
Mhm.
So the reason I sort of tell this story is because I think it's important for people to understand that pain is a protection mechanism,
Yeah.
right? It is not a simple input from your tissues to your brain. Your brain decides if there will be pain based on the available evidence that you need to be protected. Pain just happens to be the most convincing way that your body can get you to change your behavior,
Right.
right? Nothing works
Wow.
quite as good as pain.
Right.
Okay.
Pain's a wake up call.
It is. You immediately will take care of yourself and do something differently and pay attention and get help, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, the body is extremely strong and resilient and adaptable and way, way, way too strong to hurt itself just by sitting wrong,
Right.
in your car,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Your body is way too resilient, right?
Mhm.
And so the advice that I would give to people is that instead of thinking, oh my gosh, what did I do? How did I hurt my tissues? Look at the whole constellation of self,
Mhm.
right? So if you're experiencing a pretty big pain issue, take a second, look around, what are the other things happening in my life right now besides this injury? Am I stressed about work or money? Have I not been sleeping well? Have I been living off of flaming hot Cheetos and chicken nuggets? Right? Like,
Mhm.
right? Like any one of these things could be the straw that broke the camel's back. It could be the thing that leads to that overblown protection mechanism, which stops you in your tracks.
Mhm.
That's my advice.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if you could see, but I'm trying to hold back from crying here because I can.
Oh,
Now, number one, that just I'm super close to my mom, but regardless, like you nailed it on the head. Oh, we're talking about nails and hammers, right? But you
yeah.
really nailed that on the head in such a not eloquent but heartfelt way, because that's exactly what it is. And I do encourage anybody who's going through pain or been through pain, go back and look, because there's always a correlation of some sort, so you got to take care of yourselves from the self from the from you got to take care of yourself from the source. I'm wearing a retainer because I'm going through a dental implant process right now, so I'm having a hard time pronouncing my s's when I get a little emotional.
Sorry about that. So, Mandy, very emotional. We're very on an emotional roller coaster here sometimes with Who's That Fat Girl. I want to ask you, I mean, and not to knock doctors, it's just sometimes I get so annoyed with modern medicine, but I do love doctors. I love good doctors. I bless their hearts to the bad doctors. But what's some of actually the worst advice you may have heard around town about pain management? The worst advice.
I hear, so when I talk to my clients about their experience with their pain and the things that they've tried, I am very frequently heartbroken and
Yeah.
disappointed and just plain fucking pissed off
Yeah.
by the stupid shit that doctors tell people about their body.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think, let's see. Okay, so here's, very frequently people come to me with like a history of a disc herniation, disc bulge. And their understanding of that problem is that it will never heal.
Ah,
Right? Oh, I have a
yeah.
disc bulge. I'm always going to have a disc bulge. I
I'm
herniated my
screwed.
disc. Right. Is it just like some like perpetually squirting jelly donut coming out of your spine? I mean, that's what they
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because that's what they have been led to believe. Nobody
Yeah.
finished the sentence and said, "But you will heal."
Oh, Mandy,
Your
I love that. No one finished the sentence. Keep going. I'm sorry. I
yes.
didn't mean to interrupt you.
Your body, everybody's body, until the very day you die, is a lean, mean healing machine. It
Yes.
is healing. Its destiny, its dharma is to heal. Your body can't help itself but healing. Could you improve its capacity to heal largely through nutrition, having positive social interactions, having a sense of empowerment in your life, right? There's all of these different things that you could do to improve your capacity to heal, but your body's going to heal even if you do everything wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It will.
Yeah. You're right. And my dad is a case in point. That man needs to talk to you. But I am crying here because you're giving so much hope. You're giving hope to people like me, to people I know, to people who are listening. And it's really empowering. And I think and that's why your website is empoweredself.me. But I
Mhm.
think that's what's really fat, pretty hot, and tempting. That is a very loose term we use on this here podcast. Like
I
there's
love that.
hope, there's health, there's hope, and you're just making me feel better on many levels, and I think other people out there too. And Mandy, I always like to kind of wrap things up with a rapid fire fatness. That's fat with a pH, and talk about a few kind of fun, like rapid fire questions that deal with like food or things like that. That I talk about a lot on the podcast when I'm sitting there telling tales just myself. So I want to ask: do you have some sort of you're based in, and are you from Nebraska?
I am not from Nebraska, but I
Where are you from
currently live in
originally?
Nebraska,
You live in
Texas.
Nebraska. Texas, I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So
Hmm.
Texas represent. So do you sort of have maybe a favorite food from home or a favorite childhood memory associated with food or some sort of fun memory associated with food, be it if it's childhood or not?
I'm gonna go with my mom's. She had a bunch of like sort of like holiday tradition food.
Uh-huh.
So she used to make this big pot on the stovetop of wassail. Have
Yeah.
you heard of that? Like
Yes, I've
tea and
had
peanut butter.
it.
It's like
Yes.
really sticky.
Yes.
She used to make that, and then we just pour it and like sit around. Back when everybody wasn't glued to their personal screen, right? We would
Yeah.
just whatever we're doing. You're having this sugar laden, teeth rotting sort of deliciousness. Um, but it was just that stuff. Like it just made it special to have something. We only had it at Christmas. Obviously, we don't have it in
Right.
July. You have it at Christmas.
Right. That's awesome. I had wassail once when my mom moved to North Carolina. At one point, they made it there, and I loved it. I mean, who wouldn't? I love that
I
memory.
know.
Now, do you have a favorite comfort food?
My favorite comfort food is popcorn.
Mandy, that popcorn is my jam. That's my, I say,
Is
oh,
it?
popcorn's my weakness. I'm like, really, Brooke? There could be a lot worse weaknesses than popcorn. I just drank popcorn today because, when it gets to the bottom of the bag,
Yes.
yeah, That's fun. I love that. Now,
I freaking love popcorn.
and that's great because so you're a nutritionist and you say go for popcorn, right? Like, I mean,
Popcorn
there's
is really good. Yes, it's whole grain, right? Especially if you make it on the stovetop. It
Mhm.
is extremely high in fiber.
Yes.
One of the best ways to help to improve the health of your immune system is through increasing your fiber intake.
Ah. So
Yeah.
eat
So
more popcorn,
popcorn.
but no, like you're saying, the best way to do it is make it old school from scratch on the stove.
It
Yeah.
tastes the best that way, right? And it's
True.
also really good for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's healthier that way too. Oh,
If you
awesome.
eat like a tub sized, like I do, like
Yeah.
more popcorn than a human should be able to hold in their
Yeah.
personal body, it's not as good, but
Right.
I don't eat it because it's healthy. I eat it because I
Because
just really
it's
like it.
fun. It's a comfort
Mhm.
food. Heck yeah. So on that note, what's your favorite healthy food? I know there's probably a lot.
Um, I do. I really love eating health. That's just what I do.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna go with blueberries and blackberries. And then
Nice.
this is going to tie into another tip for your audience.
Uh-huh.
If you would like to sort of address your inflammation,
Mhm.
start by eating a handful or two of very dark colored berries because that is one of the most anti-inflammatory foods that
Oh,
we have
nice.
on the
I'm
planet.
I'm gonna tell my dad to go because he loves that. I'm gonna tell him
Mm,
to go get some blueberries and blackberries
yeah,
down in Baton Rouge, Stat. I love that tip.
stat.
And Stat. I love blueberries and blackberries as well. I didn't know this, but New Jersey is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, blueberry producer in the
Mm,
United States, something like that. Yeah, I've had blueberries directly from New Jersey, and they're wonderful. But I'm like, that's
I
great.
bet.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
like,
I bet you get
that's
really good ones there.
yeah, it's pretty random. I'm like the Garden State. What? Who would have thought? Now,
Yeah.
Mandy, we've heard a lot of wonderful health tips from you, but this is one of the rapid fire questions. Do you have like a healthy lifestyle mantra? Kind of like, what's your mantra that's gotten you through?
So when I was really at the height of my struggle with my pain issue, I was doing a workshop with a pretty famous biomechanics and pain science guru guy. His name is Greg Lehman.
Mm-hmm.
And he pulled up this slide, and it was the last slide of his presentation in that particular workshop. And he said, I am strong, I am stable, and I am infinitely adaptable.
Word.
And that was kind of the beginning of me feeling like I had control over my pain issue.
Mm-hmm.
Infinitely adaptable.
Wow. Strong, stable, and infinitely adaptable.
Hmm.
That's awesome. I usually will do like a social media type of like quote where I get like a quote from Canva and I write it in. So I will quote you, quoting him. We'll figure something out because that's beautiful. And I
Okay.
think everybody needs to see that because I'm literally going to write that down in my little notebook
So
when
good.
we're done. And one last question. Do you, and this might be very in that similar realm or not, do you have a moment where or like a series of moments when you really found your inner fat, pretty hot and tempting girl? And obviously that could be very theoretical here, where you felt like you were really owning and in your body. And I'm like, I'm here, I'm present, and I'm feeling good.
Um, I think that for me, I'm gonna go with nursing my kids when they were
Wow.
babies, breastfeeding.
Yeah. That's
That
powerful.
was
That's powerful. Continue. Sorry.
pretty amazing knowing that you have everything within you to grow and nourish a
Mhm.
human, except for, I mean, the contribution of one tiny sperm cell. Aside from that little, seems like
Little detail.
insignificant contribution. Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, you can't help but really have such faith for and compassion for and awe for a woman's body,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that's what
That's
I'm gonna say.
awesome. I'm so excited because we haven't had that as an answer yet. So I love that. And I even interviewed my mom, and she did not say that. So I love that you said that. I think that's really powerful. Mandy, is there anything else you'd like to share that I cut you off at any certain point, or do you feel like we have covered what we need to, and now people can come to you at empoweredself.me for more?
You are a pretty good interviewer, I will
Ah,
say.
thank
You do. I know, right? Which is, I know from experience, harder than it looks.
Yeah.
Right? Way harder than it looks. So no, I don't feel like I left anything out. I would say that I really appreciate you giving me the chance to talk to your audience about this, because it's hard living in a world where you know that people could be living a whole lot better.
Yeah.
If only they had a little bit more education and possibly someone to coach them through making the beneficial changes that they need to make. And so I'll take any chance I can get just to let people know that this exists, that you can live better, that your tissues are not your destiny, and that you are, of course, strong, stable, and infinitely adaptable.
Heck yeah. And y'all, if you want someone like Mandy to guide you, I think she's the perfect person. She has over 2 decades of experience, individualized care, good vibes. You've heard her, or if you're watching on YouTube, you've seen her. You've seen me almost break down in tears, and tears are healing. Visit empoweredself.me, and I will be leaving, y'all know how I am, little excerpts of that all over the place, so you will be able to go do click through links on the description of the podcast, etc. Mandy, thank you again so much.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening, y'all. It is my hope to inspire, uplift, and entertain you with this Who's Dat Fat Girl podcast. So, if you're hungry for more, you can book me to speak or perform my solo show that inspired this podcast, Fat Girl Costumes, written by yours truly and directed by Brian Lady at your virtual or in-person event. Please visit brookehoover.com/fluffybuttproductions or email me at contactbrookhoover@gmail.com for more info. And let's follow each other on Instagram. I'm at Brooke Hoover, and the O's in my name are not the letter O, they're zeros. Not because I want to be a size 0, but because I guess I'm just so clever with my late 90s Yahoo self. And if you like this podcast, which I really hope you do, please give me a 5-star rating and write a review on Apple Podcasts. And most importantly, share this with your friends, family, and other people you may know who are as fat as we are. That's fat with a PH.